house of God and Roseland United Methodist Church. We welcome you to our service of worship this morning. We're the Pathfinders. We have Mark, oops, look at that. We have Mark Dotson over there on the piano. We have Dave Saluski on the drums. And I'm your humble klutz, Dave DeRozier, worship leader. So we're going to start the service off this morning with Blessed Be Your Name. Blessed be your name, the land that is plentiful, the land of abundant growth. Blessed be your name. Blessed be your name, found in the desert place, where I walk through the wilderness. Blessed be your name. Every blessing you pour out, I'll turn back to praise. When the darkness closes in, Lord, still I will say, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Blessed be your name, when the sun goes down on me, when the world's all that it should be. Blessed be your name. Blessed be your name, on the road marked with suffering, for the pain in the offering. Blessed be your name. The blessing you pour out, I'll turn back to praise. When the darkness closes in, Lord, still I will say, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Give and take away. You give and take away. My heart will choose to stay. Blessed be your name. Give and take away. Oh, you give and take away. My heart will choose to stay. Oh, blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name, oh Jesus. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name.
We are here to bless the name of the Lord, to open our hearts and just to give glory to God. We are all so blessed, and what a great day it is to be together here in worship, wherever you're at. No matter what it looks like outside, it is a good day to worship God. So welcome to all of you from around the United States. We've got people in other states, and so we welcome everybody to this time of worship. Have a few announcements for you. Next Sunday will be our back to school Sunday. We will have a blessing of the backpack. So even though we still will be virtually meeting together, I invite all the children, youth to gather their backpacks, their school supplies, and to have them during worship. We will say a special prayer or blessing on our backpacks, on our students, on our teachers, if you work in a school, employees, anybody connected to going back to school. And this year of all years, we need especially to be in prayer for all of our students, teachers, and employees. So please join us next week and be prepared with all your things so that we can do a blessing for the next school year. We also will have next Sunday at 11:30 for all children and youth. We will have Sunday school again. We've missed our kids. Our teachers are just missing all of you. And so next Sunday at 11:30, all our children and youth will meet together by Zoom. If you will let Miss Patty know that you'd like to be there, or myself, and we will send you that Zoom link so that we can get all our kids together and have a great morning together. 11:30 next Sunday. And finally, Tuesdays at 7 o'clock, we're having what's called Holy Conversation. If you have any questions or want to go deeper into the subject matter, anything that may come up in my sermons, I'm available on Zoom at Tuesdays at 7 o'clock. And that Zoom link will be on the web page. I will put that out there so you will have that, or you can contact me and I'll send it to you. I am so glad that we are here to just praise God. Glad you're here with us too.
This song is called Unto the Father. I don't have a context for that kind of love, and I don't understand, and I can't comprehend. All I know is I need you. I've gone to the Father, falling into grace. I'm gone with the hiding, the reason away. My heartbeat was certain. So need a friend, for on to the Father again and again
you. Let's pray. Our gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us together today to hear your word, to worship you, and on this wonderful day. We surrender ourselves to you in worship and praise. As we gather today for our service, let's remember those who are not with us today. Remember those who are sick and we ask for their healing. Remember those with heavy hearts and ask for your guidance for them, for you know what their needs are. Remember those away, and we ask your blessings to be with them. We ask your Holy Spirit to move freely among us, dwell in us, each of us today. Blessings. Bless our leaders locally and at the state level and at the federal level. Give them the strength and courage to make the rightful decisions. Today, inspire us and let us be disciples of Christ, sharing to help all in need. As we move to the prayer Jesus gave us, let us listen to his words. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us of our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not in temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you, Jim. During our time of worship, we remember those people who are those opportunities that we have to serve God through giving. And so this is our time in which we encourage you to give back to the ministries of this church, and we're thankful for all the ways that you do that. We thankful you can give online, you can drop it off at the door. There are many ways, and you'll see them on our Facebook of the ways in which you can give. But we want to thank you for your faithful giving to the ministries of this church. Would you pray with me? Come, Holy Spirit. Fill the hearts of your faithful everywhere. Open our hearts and our minds to receive the particular message that you have for each of us today. And I pray, Lord, that the words I say are not my own, but are yours. Amen. Who do you respect? Why do you respect somebody? What is it about them that draws that sense of respect? These are important questions for each of us to look at. And today we're going to continue the story of Esther in the Old Testament as we begin to look at what it means to respect people and live lives that truly honor God. Now, last week we introduced the story of Esther. It is a short story in the Old Testament, and we were introduced to Queen Vashti, who is no longer part of the story, and so we go on to Esther. Esther is a young woman. She is Jewish. She is a woman, and she is an orphan. So she has 3 strikes against her right from the beginning, according to society there. But this is her story as she comes to the identity of being a follower of God and living a life that makes a difference. We also were introduced to King Xerxes, and he is a very powerful king of Persia. But we sort of learned that we don't have a lot of respect for this king because he can't seem to make decisions on his own. It doesn't matter, he has a great big kingdom, and yet he really seems to need other people around him to make decisions. He doesn't have confidence to make them himself. So these were the stories that people were introduced to last week, and now I'm going to introduce 2 more characters to this story. And I've sort of presented it as a mini-series. It's got all the characteristics of a mini-series. It's got drama, it's got characters that you like and don't like, and it's got a little bit of suspense. And so we're carrying this out on our mini-series this week. I want to introduce you now to the character of Mordecai. Mordecai is a gentleman. He is Jewish. He is a member of the post-exilic community there in Persia. Jews who were captured when they came into Jerusalem and took them back to their country. He has made his place there. He works now in the king's court, not in a high position, but he has a job there that he does there in the court. We know that he is a man of responsibility, of good character, because he took in Esther. Esther is a cousin whose parents died, and he took responsibility and made a commitment that he would raise her and take her almost as his daughter himself. We're also going to introduce you to a character called Haman. We don't know a whole lot about him yet, but I have to tell you, every time I hear the story of Haman, I have to think about when I was growing up. I had neighbors next door to me that one of the women, she was pregnant and had a very difficult delivery. And I was an elementary school kid, and I remember hearing the parents talk, and evidently this doctor pretty much saved their child and his wife, and they decided that they would name him. They said, "Doctor, we are going to name you after our firstborn after you." And the doctor said, "I don't think you want to do that." And they said, No. What's your name? Haman. They evidently it wasn't their first choice of names, but they honored him and continued to name him. So there are at least 2 Hamans that I know in the Orlando area that are out there. So I can't talk about the story of Esther without thinking about that story in my childhood. So let's go back to the story. Last, when we left Esther, she had become the queen. The king had picked her. He had a competition to pick the most beautiful and the woman that pleased him the most, and Esther won. She got the rose on the rose ceremony, so she was selected queen. Now, soon after she became queen, Mordecai overheard at his position 2 of the king's men that worked in his courtyard talking about overcoming the king and what plans to kill the king. So Mordecai went to Esther and told her what was going on. She let the king know. They overthrew the plot. Everything was good. The king was safe. And the 2 that were arrested, and who knows, they were killed probably in that day and time. So Mordecai was a hero, but nobody really knew him. They kept logs and journals for everything, so it was written down in the journal that this unnamed person, a hero, had rescued the king and saved the king. But nothing else ever came of it. And we learned about Mordecai that he wasn't a person that really needed that recognition. He was doing it because it was the right thing to do. Mordecai was a man of high values. He wasn't doing it to get recognition for himself, but he did it because it was the right thing to do. That was a good thing. Now, 5 years later, we go on and we enter Haman. Now we have a little bit of a comparison in the story here. Here is Mordecai who did things because they had the right thing to do. And we had Haman who, from what we can tell in the story, really doesn't do much. We can't figure out what he does, but somehow he makes it up to the top of the heap, the hierarchy. He is the king's right-hand man. But what we know about Haman is he does things not because it's the right thing to do. He does things that are good for him. That is what we do know about Haman. He likes power and he likes recognition. Well, at one point, Haman decided that all the people in the king's court should bow down to him. Why? We don't know. Just that rub his ego a little bit. But we know that Mordecai refuses to do that. He will not bow down to Haman, which makes Haman furious, really ticks him off. And we don't know why Haman, we're not told why. There's two possibilities. We know there are other places in the Old Testament of stories where people will not bow down to other people out of not reverence to God, not wanting to bow down to a person that God is the first in their life that they bow down to. But we also have a little bit of a hint that that they are both from, in their genealogy, they are both from warring sides. Haman's heritage comes from King Agag, who was an enemy of the Jews, and Mordecai was of the lineage of King Saul. And so they are natural enemies. So whether that was the reason, we don't know. But Mordecai will not bow down to Haman. So Haman, he has the king's ear. He says to the king, you know, I just need people to bow down, but he doesn't have any teeth to it. He doesn't have anything with it that he can make people, if they don't do it, like Mordecai. So he passes a second decree, starts talking to the king about this group of people in his kingdom that are doing their own things and don't respect him and are causing problems. And he tells the king, we need to get rid of those people in our kingdom. He's talking about the Jewish people. But he didn't go into specifics with the king. And the king said, well, yeah, if I've got troublemakers in my kingdom, let's get rid of them. Because remember, we've got a king that doesn't think on his own. He listens to what everybody tells him. And so Haman is excited. He now has a way to get rid of Mordecai, and he wants to hurt Mordecai, not just to say, I'm going to kill you, but he wants Mordecai to know that because of you, all your people will be destroyed here in Persia. They'll be gone because of you. It's your fault. And Mordecai is upset, and so he asks Esther to help him. Now, Esther, even though she's queen, she doesn't have a lot of power in the court. She can't just go into the king and say, I want to talk to you about this thing that's going on. In fact, nobody is allowed to talk to the king unless he gives them permission to come to him. And so it's very dangerous, therefore, for Esther to try to get an audience with the king, because he could say no and have her imprisoned or killed if she comes before him. But instead, she dresses in her finest queen garb, and she sort of stays over out of his view just a little off to the side in the courtroom. And at some point, she's able to get his attention, and he sees her standing there, and it pleases him. So he gives her permission to come talk to him. And he says, I'm so glad to see you. I'm going to give you whatever you want is yours, whatever you need, even up to half of my kingdom. And the queen says, no, I just want to invite you and Haman to come to a banquet. Now remember, we've talked about in the story, food, everybody likes to eat here. And so here's your banquet for this part of the story. So she invites him to come, gives a nice banquet for the king and for Haman. And then he says, now tell me what you want to ask me. And she says, well, no, I'll do it tomorrow. I want to give you another banquet tomorrow. And the king agrees. Well, meanwhile, what's going on is Haman is making plans to execute Mordecai. He's actually built the gallows for him, and he just needs to get final permission from the king to do that. But he's excited. He's been invited to this banquet. He and the king, wow, he is really getting up there. He is powerful in the kingdom. So he goes home and tells his wife, this is great, and I've been invited back again to another banquet. I'm coming up in the world. I'm somebody really important. And at that banquet, I'm going to make sure that I tell the king about Mordecai and just get rid of this whole thing so I'll be done with it for good. Well, that night, the king had trouble sleeping. And I guess when he can't sleep, instead of counting sheep, he pulls out all the old journals of the logs of the kingdom, and he has somebody start reading things that happened. And they happened to read the one where Mordecai saved the king. And the king talked about, wow, this was a hero who saved me. Did we do something for this man? And said, no, I don't think we ever recognized him. And the king wanted to change that. And he wanted to come up with something that he could do. And so Haman happened to be there. And this is what he said. Let's read a little bit. So he saw Haman and he called to him. Now remember, Haman is coming in to tell him about his plans to execute Mordecai. When Haman entered, the king asked him, what should be done for the man the king delights to honor? Now Haman thought to himself, who is there that the king would rather honor than me? Of course. So he answered the king, for the man the king delights to honor, have them bring a royal robe that the king has worn, and a horse the king has ridden, with a royal crest placed on its head. Then let the robe and horse be entrusted to one of the king's most noble princes. Let them robe the man the king delights to honor, and lead him on the horse through the city's streets, proclaiming before him, this is what is done for the man the king delights to honor. King liked that plan, and he said, go at once, he commanded him, and get the robe and the horse, and do just as you have suggested for Mordecai the Jew, who sits at the king's gate. Do not neglect anything that you have commended. Well, that was not what Mordecai expected to hear, was it? And so, but he was trapped, and he had to go ahead and do everything that he had said. And here was his plans to kill Mordecai now in disarray. Now, a good mini-series keeps you in suspense, right? So next week, we go on to the second banquet, and we'll find out what it was that Queen Esther does to help save the Jewish people. But today, I want us to continue thinking about this idea of our responsibility as followers of God. It is our responsibility to be like Mordecai. The Bible is something that's like a mirror that is held up to us. That when we read things like this, it reminds us that we are truly to be reflections of God to other people and how we live our life. It's a mirror that reflects the morality of our actions. Now, somebody who did the right things without regard to versus himself was Mordecai. He did the right things for others and didn't think about how it affected himself. We have that person versus Haman, who everything he did was for his own self, for his good. It was all about him in Haman's mind. So when we think about this as Christians, it's important to remind ourselves that we live moral lives. That's what we're called to do, is to live moral lives, not for ourselves, but for the place that we are in life, for where we are placed, and what we are called to do. We hear this in 2 Peter verses 3 through 10. His divine power has given us everything we need for a godly life through our knowledge of Him who called us by His own glory and goodness. Through these, He has given us His very great and precious promises, so that through them you may participate in the divine nature, having escaped the corruption in the world caused by evil desires. For this reason, make every effort to add to your faith goodness, and to goodness knowledge, and to knowledge self-control, and to self-control perseverance, and to perseverance godliness, and to godliness mutual affection, and to mutual affection love. For if you possess these qualities in increasing measure, they will keep you from being ineffective and unproductive in your knowledge of the Lord Jesus Christ. But whoever does not have them is nearsighted and blind, forgetting that they have been cleansed from their past sins. Therefore, my brothers and sisters, make every effort to confirm your calling and election. For if you do these things, you will never stumble, and you will receive a rich welcome into the eternal kingdom of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. We are called to live a moral life that truly reflects God and influences other people. Mordecai led that kind of a life. We saw it right from the beginning as he just took care of and cared for Esther. He didn't have to do that, but he took that as his responsibility to care for somebody else and to be a guiding example for her. Because we see as she's living out her life, she's living out the values that Mordecai has taught her. I think all parents, all guardians, all people that influence children, they're all our heroes. They are all our Mordecais in life. Those people that make a difference in children's lives. And as we, especially in this time, as we're getting ready to go back to a very unusual and anxiety-filled school year, the heroes, the Mordecais in these children's lives are ever so much more needed. Mordecai shaped Esther, and we get the feeling that he was a leader in the Jewish community there, shaping theirs and taking responsibility for them as well. So how does our faith shape the moral responsibility that you live, that I live, that we are as examples to others? We should have opportunities to shape our youth, our young people. But we also are called to shape those people who are young in their faith. People just turning to grow to Christ, growing to understand what it means to live a responsible life based on the teachings of Jesus. And it means each one of us has to be an example for them, to help them understand what it means and to help them through those difficult times when, as we all know, faith gets tough. When we stand up for our faith and we meet resistance. Each one of us is that Mordecai to be there and support and guide and help shape. In the book of Esther, the name God is not mentioned, not once. Yet we hear this call of God to God's people throughout it. That moral responsibility that we have to others. So we think about the king. We think about Mordecai versus a king. Mordecai who thought about everything he did, thought about it, made decisions based on himself, versus the king who listened to everybody else. That's where he got his opinions. In this day and age, it is so difficult for each of us. There are so many opinions flying around about everything right now. Social media makes everything available to all people. But we need to be like Mordecai, to ground ourselves in God, to get our moral convictions through the reflections of the Bible, the teachings of Jesus. And today, of all days, it is so important to do that. Do others see that moral conviction in you? There was a man, his name was Robert Brighton, and he was in his first year of marriage. His wife lived in Raleigh, North Carolina, and he worked in Virginia, 3 hours away. So they were apart during the day, during the week on their first year of marriage. But every Friday he would make that drive for them to be together on the weekend. One weekend, she was being honored on a Friday in her work for some of the things that she'd done, and he promised her he would be there for her. And unfortunately, on that day, he was working a little farther away in Virginia. And so he was trying to avoid some of the rush hour, and he took some back roads. And in one of the back roads in a rural area where nobody was around, this big black pickup just came roaring down the road, taking up both sides of the road, and Robert had to sort of swerve off to get on the side of the road out there. But unfortunately, it was very soft, and he slid off of that into a ditch and ran up against a stump and could not get his car out. He was sitting there in despair going, what am I going to do now? And then this truck came along, a big red truck, and this gentleman got out and he said, hey, you look like you've got a problem. And he said, yes. And he goes, explain the situation. He goes, I live about a mile up the road. I'll go get my tractor and come back and pull you out. So while he was sitting there waiting, about 7 different people came down the road and stopped to see if it's okay. And he told them, no, this gentleman said he's going to go get a tractor and pull me out. And they go, oh, yeah, that's Bobby Proctor. You're in good hands. He'll take good care of you. And he was surprised. Everybody seemed to know who this Bobby Proctor was. And they all said, he's a good man. So this is what he says, Robert says. He says, the real story is more than the fact that people stopped to help me. It was how everybody who came along knew Bobby Proctor. I don't know how, but I can assume if his actions that day were any example, he's a local hero to many. They obviously remembered his name too, and what an honor it is when people speak highly of someone who isn't present. I realized that if I had to be stuck in a ditch in the middle of nowhere, that was the best place to be, because Bobby Proctor was there to help. When we're out, when we're not wearing a church t-shirt or a cross or talking about Jesus, do people still see the values of Christian living reflected in us? Do we reflect that moral heart of Jesus in the way we live and how we respond to people? Can you think of people that have been that for you, that have been those Bobby Proctors or those Mordecais for you? Those people that have held up a mirror to you and have shown the reflections of the teachings of the Bible. They are the bearers of the integrity that we are all called to live. So today I ask you, who is your Mordecai? Who is your Bobby Proctor? Who are the people that are reminding you of how we're called to live? Whether the word God is mentioned or not. And who will say to other people, will remember your name and remember the example that you gave to them of right living? Let's pray. Oh, gracious God, we thank you for all the situations and opportunities that you give us to reflect you and your teachings to others. Forgive us when we fail to do so, when we get too caught up in ourselves or other people, that we forget to keep our heart on you. Give us your courage and strength to be a Mordecai in today's world. Amen.
We're going to close our service this morning. We're going to close our service this morning with a new song by Zach Williams. But before I do that, I'd like to just give a shout out and a thanks to our technical team this morning, Marilyn Waldis, Gary Spencer, and Sharon Dotson. And if we didn't have the support from folks like this, then what we do up here would be a mess. So I'd just like to say thank you. You guys are great, and we really appreciate you. There I was, empty-handed, crying out from the pit of my despair. There you were, in the shadows, holding out your hand and there. Where would I be without you? Oh, where would I be? Jesus, you were the voice in the desert, calling me out in the dead of night, fighting my battles for me. You were my rescue story, lifted me up from the ashes, carried my soul from death to life, bringing me glory to glory. You were my rescue story. You are, you are. You were my rescue story. You are, you are. You were writing the pages before I had a name, before I needed grace. You were singing songs of redemption. Every time I ran away, you were louder than my shame. Oh, and where would I be without you? Where would I be, Jesus? You were the voice in the desert, calling me out in the dead of night, fighting my battles for me. You were my rescue story, lifting me up from the ashes, bringing me back to the death of life, bringing me glory to glory. You were my rescue story. You are, you are. You were my rescue story. You are, you are. Never gave up on me. Never gave up on me. You were my testimony. Never gave up on me. You never gave up on me. You were my testimony. Oh, never gave up on me. Never gave up on me. You were my testimony. Oh, never gave up on me. Never gave up on me. Oh, this
We are part of the story that God is writing. Is your story one of Mordecai, of reflecting the values that God teaches us? Think about this week as you watch how you reflect, respond to people around you, the example that you set. Whether you mention the name of God or not, do people see God in you? And now may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you his peace this day and forevermore. And all God's people said, Amen.
Every blessing you pour